Today I'm going to do pizzas because I know you guys can now buy pizzas takeaway. There's something really satisfying about making your own, and it is incredibly easy to do so. So I'm going to show you two different ways. We're going to make one basic pizza dough, and then we're going to make small oval ones for the kids, which you can actually do on top of your stove and not in the oven. And then we're going to do a nice one for the oven on a pizza stone and see the difference. So I'm doing about 4 cups of bread flour. This will make quite a lot of dough actually. And then the thing about pizza dough for me is that people tend to use way too much yeast. So if you want a quick pizza, then use, a whole package of yeast. But for me, it's not the same. If you use, I'm going to use literally a tip, like that much, no more. I would prefer to leave it to rise slowly over the course of the day, but also because it gives you a thinner base. So if you want a nice bready mixture, when my son was a teenager and he used to bring all his mates around, and you know how much teenage boys eat, oh my god, it's ridiculous. So what I used to do was I would then use a whole package of yeast, and then I would use an oven tray, and I would make a thick bready pizza, sort of like an Italian peasant pizza, if you will, that you'd buy on the street. So it's much more substantial, and one tray of a thick bready, more like bread actually, but a bready type of base, used to go really far. But if you want to make pizza for yourself, depending on the thickness of your base, I like a thinner base. If you make it sort of a medium, then you can put cheese all around the edge and roll the sides over so that you've got a little bit of cheese in your crust. So there's a lot of things we can do. Right, so now 4 cups of flour, a little bit of yeast, and now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Next we're going to add water. And don't get fixated, as I say, on measurements. Start slowly, add until you can feel the consistency. You don't need to be constricted by quantities all the time. So you want the dough to be a soft, elastic dough. It mustn't be a hard dough. At the end of the day, this is still a kind of bread. So you want to have moisture in it. I'm going to add a little bit of Italian herb to this, just because I can, and it's another taste. And now I'm going to do some kneading. Okay, this actually feels a little bit dry to me, but I'm going to see how I go, because it's very hard to add water to a dough, but I have found a way, and I haven't done it many times. So I just kind of scoop out a little bit here, and then I just add a little bit of water, and then I kind of fold it up and around, and then that helps to amalgamate the whole thing together. And then you just got to do a little bit more work, but it's just, I'm doing this so that you can see that even if you have made it a little bit dry, there are ways around everything. This to me should still have a little bit more liquid, but I'm going to work this a little bit because the texture and the consistency and everything else changes with a little bit of work. But this to me is definitely not wet enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more. So I'm kind of forcing this dough into submission because I didn't add quite enough water to start off with. And the reason that I'm doing this way and not filming and then redoing it is because this is the real world and this is how things work in the kitchen. So you need to be able to think on your feet and make a plan. You know, everything is about making a plan. So this is now becoming more elastic. And as I say, because it is a bread, essentially it needs to have its gluten stretched and it needs to be taught who the master is before it becomes its own life form. So now I'm going to oil this bowl and then I'm going to turn this in the oil and leave it to rest, more than rise actually, because you know I don't really want a huge rise out of this, but I do want the yeast to develop the flavor of the base. Right, so we're going to put a smidge of oil in here. And then just turn this over so that it's nicely coated in the oil. And then leave it to rest. Right. I'm just going to make the tomato base, which for me is really important. You know, I don't understand it when people just slap tomato puree or something on their pizza base. The flavor needs to be in that tomato base. It needs to be flavoursome, herby, you know, have some substance to it. I don't see the point of a sort of pale blood-like smear on a pizza. What is that about? You know, have some gorgeous tomatoey goodness. I mean, that's all it is really. Is a bread, tomato, and cheese. Make it worth something. So I'm just going to use a very small onion because I'm only making a small amount of tomato sauce and I don't want it to be overtly oniony. I just want it to have the, you know, an extra flavor. And then I'm going to put in 2 cloves of garlic and I'm going to put in some dried chili because I always like to have a little bit of heat. I'm not chopping up the garlic too finely because, you know, it's quite nice to have some chunks in there. That's going in. Always the smell of garlic and onion frying is heaven. I have a mad aunt who, whenever she smells cooking onions, has to rush off immediately and buy like a boerewors roll, or she doesn't eat meat anymore, I don't think, but she, you know, she's a bit weird that way. Right, so now the tomato goes in. If I can get the lid off, don't worry, okay, we won't bother. A little bit of water to clean out my tin. And because it'll cook down. So these are whole peeled tomatoes, so I'm just going to give these a little cut like this to help them break down. So you can have a chunky sauce, or you can get a stick blender or something and just blend it down. Personal preference again. In goes some Italian herb and some oregano and some chili. You can see I'm quite heavy-handed with my herbs because if you're going to have sort of Italian flavour coming out in your tomato sauce, then I want to be able to taste it because that's going to be the main flavor. I mean, I'm only going to do bacon, mushroom, olives on this pizza. And the kiddies one, I'm going to just do a margarita because I don't know how many children like other things on their pizzas. I mean, my entire family are olive freaks. So even my granddaughters are just, they will have a whole bottle of olives. So that's what we're going to do, just to keep it simple. But, you know, if you've got artichokes, anything like that, it's sun-dried tomatoes, anchovies, capers, the world is your oyster. I mean, roasted garlic is beautiful on there, and I love cooked potato actually on a pizza as well. So you can do a whole lot of stuff. And if you're going to make pizzas and you've got leftover veggies or whatever, broccoli, anything like that, that also goes really well on a pizza and makes it economical and it makes it nutritious. So we're going to let this cook away so that we've got a nice thick sauce which is going to go on our pizza, and then let it cool. So the pizza dough, you can see, is risen. It's just over an hour, and I don't want it to be, you know, well, bigger than this because this is not what we're making. So I'm just going to do a small kiddies pizza, and I'm also going to do a garlic pizza base, like not a focaccia, but you know, that lovely garlic and rosemary and salt base that is very nice to have as a hors d'oeuvre. So this you can get your kids to do. Kids love to be part of making pizzas. I'm just going to put a cast iron frying pan which is going to build up some nice heat on here, and then we're going to use this as a small pizza for your kids to have. So we've got a little bit of the herb in here that you can see. I'm just going to make this big enough to fit this because it's not quite thin enough. And you can do whatever shape you like. I mean, these little ovals are quite handy. They're sort of a decent sized pizza even for you to have around watching, you know, TV. So we put a little bit of base on. Now I've left mine chunky, as you can see. A lot of kids are sensitive to textures, so if you get a stick blender you can make this very smooth. Or if you've got an unfussy child, then this is great. We're just going to put it all around, and I'm just doing a plain margarita for this. And because this is a kid, I'm not going to put too much of the tomato on. I've grated some mozzarella and mixed it with a little bit of cheddar so that you've got flavor as well as the stretchiness of the mozzarella, because I mean we don't get really good mozzarella here anyway. Proper buffalo mozzarella, which would be delicious on the pizza. I mean, ours is kind of like stretchy plastic really. It's pretty damn flavorless. So we've got the tomato sauce and we've got a little bit of cheese, which we are going to then put this in here on high heat, and then we are going to just cover it. And you've got a very quick way of doing a pizza. While this is heating up, I'm going to start rolling out a nice thin base for the garlic pizza that has got no tomato on it at all. And this dough, because it's pizza dough, can easily be stretched. You know, you see them flinging it around and whatever. It's because this should be nice and elastic. I've ripped it, so now I'm going to repair it. You know, when you have proper pizzas in a pizza oven, the temperature is like 500 degrees, 600 degrees centigrade. It is incredibly hot. maybe, you know, the proper ones in Italy are even hotter. So that when your base goes in, it literally takes 2 minutes, you know, and that's what you want. Of course, our ovens don't get to that temperature, so I've put a pizza stone in. And the pizza stone goes into the oven cold, because otherwise it's going to crack. And then you allow it to come to temperature, and by the same token you have to let it cool down the same way. So that's in the oven getting hot, and it won't give us, you know, a commercial pizza oven beautiful base, but it will help. Right, so this is smoking, so this can go in now. Okay, so I'm going to check the base of these pizzas, and the base is now nice and done, so I'm going to switch this off and I'm going to shove this in the oven just to melt the top of it while I do the other thing. So that's going to go in, and I can just put that on the rack, take my pizza stone out, which is going to be very hot, and then quickly transfer my pizza dough onto there. So it's already going to start cooking, and then I've got rosemary, garlic and olive oil, which I'm going to brush onto here. And then I'm going to add some salt. This has got seaweed and all sorts of stuff in here. There you go. And then we're going to put this back into the oven, which is the highest it can go. There you go. And then we will give it 10 minutes. So here we've got the kiddies pizza, which I'm just going to put in there for now. And then I'm going to take out the garlic pizza, which as you can see has bubbled beautifully, lovely and crisp. I'm going to put this here, and because I don't want my pizza stone to get cold, I'm going to do another base quickly. So even though we'll only have this later, I'm going to do the base, and then that can go into the oven and heat up at a later stage. Put my tomato on. And you can see how the pizza stone helps get that beautiful heat. It magnifies the heat so that you get a more pizza-like base rather than just being in the oven. So you can pre-do a whole lot of bases by just putting it in for a couple of minutes, just like this, and then you stop it rising and everything, and it cooks a little bit. Then you can freeze all of these bases if you want, once it's got tomato in and then on, and then you can make your pizzas later. You take them out of the freezer just like you would buy pizzas. And then you put your toppings on your cheese and you slap it in the oven very briefly. So here, let's have a look at this, at both of these. You've got a lovely crisp base. I've made this one slightly thicker, but you can see the air pockets that have gone in, and that's from the heat. So that's really lovely. And then this garlic pizza is just the most perfect thing to have with a glass of wine, a snack when you're eating, chatting. It's really good. There's no reason that you can't do this yourself. So now I'll wait for this base, do another one, and hey presto, we've got pizzas for Sunday night dinner, snack now for TV, and you can do the same thing very easily. Okay, so this is literally 3 minutes in the oven. And what I've done is I've just started the cooking process so that it doesn't rise anymore and it's not going to get buggered up. So I'm going to put this on here to cool. And then I'm going to quickly do the last bit of dough. Put this back in the oven to stay hot because we don't want this to cool down. And do the same thing, and then this will be ready for assembling as a pizza later on. The other one can go into the freezer because it will be pre-cooked and then all done. So when it comes time to assemble this, I will do that later. So I put on this pizza bacon, olives, and I'm slicing up some mushrooms, which will go on top. And then it's going to go into the oven. A little bit of cheese, a little bit more cheese on the top. And I have chopped up some fresh chili and garlic with a little bit of olive oil. That will go on once the pizza is cooked. And I have avo ready as well. So let's get this out. It's a lot easier to handle now that I have pre-done it. Now it's going to go in just for a couple of minutes. I've put the avo in the iced water to soak for a couple of minutes so that it doesn't discolor. And then I'm just going to drain it and it's ready for when the pizza comes out. This has been in for 5 minutes because the base was pre-cooked. And there we have it. I'm going to switch off the oven now and let my pizza stone cool down. If you don't have a pizza stone, put in a nice solid baking tray and let that get really hot. So we're going to put on some avo. And we like avo, so we put lots on. Avo fingers. Just going to cut that horrible piece of avo off. And then we are going to cut it up. You can hear it's got a nice crisp base. And there you have it. The easiest pizza you can possibly imagine. No excuse not to do it. Have fun with it. Cheers. See you next time.